Welcome to the PodMAX Podcast.
Oh, yes, indeed. Welcome for sure to the PodMAX Podcast, but not your usual average podcast, and not just because there's an additional gentleman with permission who is here. He didn't just raid the joint, although you would have, wouldn't you?
I definitely would have.
You would have. You guys recognize that voice, maybe not the face. I admittedly had no clue. He came to the studio an hour ago, and I
was
said,
invited.
Yeah.
I was invited. He had no idea who I was.
Just showed up.
Yeah.
and I said, can I help you?
Yeah, you know me.
Yeah, he doesn't have his signature glasses on. Who are you?
I'm Mike Ham, the coolest guy in title insurance and host of the Morning Spotlight. Good to meet you, Josh.
Wow.
Nice to meet you.
Nice.
Good to
Yeah.
see you here.
Nice.
It's fantastic. Thank you
Nice.
for having me. Very excited to be here on this show in the studio. It's my first ever studio appearance.
Wow, how does it feel 16 seconds in?
Weird, honestly,
Wow.
because usually I'm just looking at, basically like here up
Right.
on you guys. So now, I realized how short and tall some of you may be.
Yeah.
But I also look at myself in this camera in relation to the rest of you on this table, and I'm basically taking up, I feel like, girth-wise, half. It's just like, it's freaking me out a little bit to actually put me next to somebody. So
So Eric and I are splitting 25% each.
yeah,
That's what you're saying?
25% each. You guys look
Of real
svelte.
estate.
I look like a whale. So this is fantastic.
All right. Well, speaking of all of that, before we get too far down this path, not only is this a new style of episode, Eric and I, we spoke about this before.
yeah.
This is actually going to be PodMAX Podcast, the reunion,
Love it.
which means that every week we are going to welcome somebody from the PodMAX family, somebody who has been through the event in some form or another. And that's going to be the launching pad. And we'll start from there and we'll have all kinds of good conversation. And this just happened to be the date that Mike was going to be here. And it coincided with our transition from season 1. You've watched 24 plus episodes, the segments, the news, all of that stuff. But now we're going to be turning into PodMAX Podcast, the reunion. And Mike Ham is here to join us.
Yeah, I'm so excited about this because it is a preview of what's to come.
Mhm.
You know, this summer we are passing the baton and the mics to Larry Love, aka Larry Roberts,
Mhm.
and Rachel Sparrow, who heads up our PodMAX talent division. And they're going to rock and roll through the month of July and take us out into the sunset with that sort of format of the PodMAX podcast. But Josh and I have always wanted to highlight the community in some way, shape, or form. And we were like, wow, this is a wonderful opportunity to sort of hit the reset button and bring a new sort of vibe and feel to the show so that we spread the love, right? Because it was about me and Josh talking about stuff, and now we get to bring in Mike and bring in others, and maybe we'll have Rocky come in, or we'll Zoom you in, whoever it is. You don't have to physically be in New Jersey or Pennsylvania or Connecticut or New York, whatever. But yeah, how does it feel to be here? How does it feel to be with us? How does it feel to be Mike Ham without glasses and a new hat?
Yeah, so it feels awesome to be here because, you've come on my show. Josh, spoiler alert, is a guest coming up in a future episode on the show.
I had to beg for that, by the
That's
way.
true.
It was not easy.
I started listing all the PodMAX people, whether they were guests from an actual event or people that I just met through PodMAX, like Larry and Kristen, other people. And then Josh was like, "Oh, thanks for the invite."
no.
And I was like, "Oh boy, I
Yeah,
forgot."
this is awkward.
So,
This is getting awkward.
but it feels great because like the PodMAX community, and I've said this a lot, and I try to pump you guys up as much as I possibly
Appreciate
can,
that.
and to actually be here in person and kind of see where this is where the sausage gets made. Like this is where the magic happens. So I'm really excited to be here with you guys and actually get to meet you and all this kind of stuff. Like I said, first ever podcast in person, whether as a guest or a host, and who better than Josh Carey and Eric Cabral.
Wow,
So I'm super
better?
excited.
I like that who better moniker.
Yeah.
So let's start from the top. How did you first enter our world?
So a friend of mine, Mitch Beinhacker,
Mitch.
had gone through some networking events together, and he knew that I had started this podcast, the Morning Spotlight plug, back in July of last year. And he was like, "Oh, cool. Like, let's talk about it." Cause he has the accidental entrepreneur. So we were talking more about that. So he was like, "Oh, have you ever heard of PodMAX?" And he started telling me about it. I was like, "What is that?" So then tried to get in, I think, to the November event, but I think I signed up maybe like 2 days before it and it just didn't work out. And then I got, the go ahead to come in the December event because I had Devin Bravacco on the show and some other people that were, excuse me, that had come through PodMAX community and all that kind of stuff, and went to my first PodMAX event in December and was just blown away. And now I've been to I think this most recent one was my 4th or 5th. Wow. So
consecutive.
I missed one in May. Was there a May one? I went to the one in June.
Yeah, there was.
I missed the one in May. So I've been in every other one since then I've been to.
And you came through as a show host, you said?
Yeah, show host. So I've had, I guess 12, 15 guests directly from the show. Wow. And then other people, like I mentioned before. I mean, I had, I've had Larry on the show. I've had Kristen Olsen on the show. I've had other people that I've met through PodMAX on the show. I've had Jeffrey Hazlett, who was a keynote speaker at the December event on the show, which was awesome. And then even through him, met other people that were eventually guests on the show. So it's the community aspect of it, which I think is the coolest part, is that it's not just this one event. It's just this whole, and this is a perfect example of it, us three sitting here and just chatting. Even before we even got on the air, it was like we were just like old friends because you attract the people that you put the vibe that you put out into the world. And here we are when we're vibing.
I love these seemingly innocuous, big word, right?
Very big word.
I love these seemingly innocuous conversations and things that happen. Like you said, Mitch Beinhacker, who's incredible. He's local. He'll probably, should also be here.
Definitely.
Which I think we're already in an email thread to get that on the calendar.
We should get all 4 of us together.
Right.
Or
I'll come back.
3. No, 3.
Oh,
3 is fine.
We got an extra chair.
You guys don't even sit down. Maybe that's why I look so big, because I'm sitting down in these chairs.
But I love how like this passing moment between you and Mitch, where he said, "Hey, have you heard of PodMAX? You got to come in." And that conversation led to so much more in your life that, I mean, and we all have these moments where these things happen and then they take you down a path. Could you imagine like just things would have been different, right?
Yeah.
For better or worse, like
right.
if that conversation never took place.
Oh my God. It's the butterfly effect.
Yeah. What is that?
And it's like, I look at it and really, I mean, I've said this before on my own show and on other shows. I didn't listen to podcasts before I started the Morning Spotlight. I mean, I discussed some people that I listened to on radio, and that's kind of what my vibe was when I first started. So when I started the show and I got all the way to December, just kind of like middling through it and just not really getting everything that I could out of myself and the show by an extension. Then I go to PodMAX and I start looking up like Readily Random. I start looking up Turmeric and Tequila. I start looking up the On Air Brands podcast before there was the PodMAX podcast. And I was like, oh, like these are things that people are doing that are on my level. Because if you listen to like those big shows, Rogan, whoever else, I mean, they have teams of people that are helping them put that stuff together. So I could try to emulate that, but I can't. But when I start looking at what other people are doing that are kind of in my wheelhouse, all of a sudden now I can start leveling up. Then you have those conversations with those same podcasters. And now all of a sudden you're leveling up even more. And the community aspect, especially from a podcaster standpoint, is so giving and so collaborative that it just all of a sudden I went from having a decent show to what I think now is a great show. I mean, granted, I'm biased because I'm the host, but I think that's a direct extension from literally, like you said, one conversation with Mitch has gotten me all the way to where I am now.
One thing I want to highlight that you said, Mike, to the audience that may have sort of picked up on Mike saying, where there's the Rogans, maybe the Tim Ferrisses, and, I can't do what they're doing, but I can do what Larry's doing. I can do what Kristen's doing. I want to course correct that sort of concept and idea. What you have, Mike, and what we have is access to each other.
Yeah.
If you had access to Rogan, you would see that he's doing the same shit we're doing.
Right.
Like we're all doing the same things. We're using the same tools. We're using the same methods. There's nothing that they're doing that's different than what we're doing other than they're big and they have teams to distribute content.
Such a great point.
That is a good point.
Technically, we've got it down. It's all the same stuff.
Yeah.
And if you spoke to him, you'd be like, oh man, yeah, you're like me. I'm like you. We're the same dude.
There's something so strong and powerful about that. We should go into a little bit, because you just naturally put him on a different pedestal. I'm guessing because he was bought for 9 figures by Spotify, perhaps, and all these other things because of the breadth of his audience.
Yep.
Right. That's 2 big words so far.
You're really crushing it.
Yeah. Well, I'm an SAT guy. Yeah. I got 890 on my SATs total, ladies and gentlemen. No joke. Total 890 for those keeping score.
That's why you're in the entertainment biz.
Right.
So stay in school, kids. That's why I'm all self-conscious now. I got to throw in these big words.
Yeah,
I know what I'm talking about.
Do I intimidate you with my obvious, knowledge and brain power? Is that why you're trying to impress me?
Well, I told you when we were before the air that you without your glasses is really freaking me out, because I thought you were a big nerd, and I loved that about you.
Yeah.
Now you're like a cool nerd.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Without the glasses.
Well, I mean, I was a cool nerd before. I don't know why I wouldn't be cool before that.
Right. So you're looking at Rogan, just this big breadth. Tough word to say. There's a D in the middle.
Yeah,
There's
a D. Breadth.
So true.
Right, but why are you looking at him like, oh, I'm not him, but these guys, these are my schmucks?
Well, no, I don't even think it's like that, because, like Eric, you just said about distributing content, right? That is the one thing that I think as podcasters is the most important thing that you need to do is get your stuff out there. And if you are head chef and chief bottle washer, like I am at my show, you have to do all that stuff too. So it's one of those things where like I can get not maybe just the show, but just how I distribute, the way that I distribute, how I get different types of content out there. My Instagram page used to literally just be side-by-side Zooms, like not even branded, with nothing. And it was if you scroll all the way to the bottom of the Morning Spotlight Instagram page, it is the most boring Instagram page in the history of social media. Now it's a lot different because I'm looking at what these other people are doing, whether it's reels, whether it's trying different Canva type things, whether it's different ways to try to go about using what I have. And I use everything I do is free. I use, everything I use is the free version because we're not spending the money. So, because we don't have it. So everything I do, I need to get the most, squeeze as much juice out of what I got. Yeah. So I'm putting that stuff out there. So getting tips and different ways that those other people do it is more kind of how I look at it. Like I'm using those as an example of how to get that content in front of the right people.
What's cool about that, dude, is we figure out how to make the sausage, right? So that this way we can go talk to someone later and go, hey, you may not have made sausage, or maybe you have, but you didn't do it the way I'm doing it. Yeah. So now I know the ingredients, I know the method, to bake and cook up my stuff. I just want to now speak and tell you the detail of how I'm doing it so that it's sort of the same thing. But what's cool, dude, is Gary V started out just turning the camera on and like, hey, buy my wine, so he's the same as you. We're all sort of starting from 0 episodes to 1, right? And figuring it out. No one's like turning the mic and the camera on and saying, I got a team behind me. Like very rarely, very rarely. But it's so cool to sort of just peel back. So anyone who's watching, anyone who's listening, and you're like, man, these guys sound pro, or they look pro. It's like, we started just like you. We started out with nothing, and we bought a camera and we bought a microphone, and we just tried to figure it out. I literally started my very first podcast on my phone, on my iPhone. And I was just talking into it. I'm like, meh, meh. I'm in my basement.
But we have this compare gene that we come into. But I like that you came into PodMAX and there was something comforting there, right? It sounds like from day one, when you came into that first event, you saw your tribe. You're like, oh, this is where I belong. Like, these are my people.
Yeah. It was like literally, I forget who my actual first guest was.
We could find out.
Yeah. My first guest at that December event, I don't know why I can't remember it, and it's very upsetting that I can't remember. Oh, it was Mark Phillips. It was Mark Phillips.
Oh, yeah.
That came through Mark Stinson. So Mark was my first one, and he was, I think, a newbie at that event too.
Yes.
But like immediately, it was like perfect. And at the time, I was doing mostly real estate stuff, so this was a very different type of experience for me. But it just worked, and that's the one of the things I said to you recently was now I just don't care. I'll take any guest that PodMAX has at an event, and I'll have them on my show because it just works. We can make it work because it just the vibe and with the stories and all that kind of stuff, the energy matches obviously the energy that I bring to my show, and that's what I need. I don't like low energy guests, but
Can you speak from a podcaster's perspective? Because normal podcasters such as ourselves,
we're normal.
No. I don't normally go to an event and record and batch my shows. Like if I'm batching, I'm with my other Josh, partner doing other shows, but we're batching, we're in our own little silo. We're not, and then in between shows, we're going back to business and life and doing things. So what does it feel like as a podcaster, energy level wise, experience wise, what level 10 or 11 are you at coming into an event as a podcaster versus when you record outside of the event?
That's a good question. I think one of the things, especially with PodMAX, with having the MC extraordinaire Josh Carey, is one of the things that really kind of separates that event from just recording an episode on your own. Like it's one thing. I mean, I have no problem, getting up. Doesn't matter like what kind of night I had the night before. What kind of night
did you have?
Doesn't even.
Let's go there.
Doesn't even matter. We're not going to get onto that because this is live. But
my
mom, don't
exactly.
Mom. I'm just kidding. It's just a joke. Just a figure of speech. So, but it doesn't matter. Like I could do it. But not everybody has like that flip it on kind of thing, especially from the guest side. Yeah. So then you get into a PodMAX event or an event in general. I mean, I haven't done that many events like that, but you start doing a PodMAX event and all of a sudden like that first 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. energy's high and it's 9 a.m., 10 a.m. our time, but not for everybody else.
That's right.
But even they bring it. Like I had Amber Furman on the show. She lives in Vegas, right?
That's right. Pacific
she came
time.
in, Pacific time. So whatever that is, 6 o'clock in the morning.
I can't do math like that.
Right. And I mean, she was one of my first guests at one of the other events and it was just boom, like we were rolling. It was fantastic. And that is what I think separates that is like you can go through an entire event, an 8-hour Zoom call, which is what PodMAX is, and really take it to like another level because the energy levels, the way it starts and the way it finishes is consistent. So it kind of keeps you like, oh man, like this keynote speaker is awesome. This guest is awesome. Everything is awesome.
This reminds me of it's kind of like, hey guys, we're all on like a bus together and we're recording shows and it's bumpy and we're going and it's going fast. It's like Keanu Reeves in Speed.
Oh, geez.
And then so that's like the collective experience. Everyone's on this sort of high and this momentum and adrenaline at the same time, which that's unique, right? Because you're recording a show in an environment that isn't normal.
I'm glad you brought up the question, like, how does it feel from a host point of view? Because I've never really given that consideration. But if I were to think, okay, I am now Josh, the podcast host, who was asked to participate in this event, I'd feel pretty darn good and supported because you guys are treating me like talent in a sense. You're giving me the validation by matching me with amazing people that you trust me with. That's the thing. And you're giving me my call sheet. You're like, hey, we're going to take care of you. You're going to be here at 10. Oh, wow. You're going to be here at 11. Don't worry. We got it all handled for you.
Yeah.
Right? Am I too energetic for this moment?
No, that's fantastic. Right. I mean, that's exactly how I feel about PodMAX.
That, right?
I like the call sheet.
It's literally like, I mean, I think I said this on the second PodMAX that I was a part of in January. You guys asked me what it's like to come back, and I was like, well, fantastic, because now I have 3 episodes that I'm going to put in the can that I don't even have to go find a guest for. You guys give them to me, and I know they're going to rock. Like, that's the great part about it.
Something unique about Mike. And there's certain people that we love within the community. I mean, we love everyone, but there's certain people that rise and like show up more than normal. What inspires you to create testimonial videos, case study videos,
those are so good.
Hot highlight trailers for PodMAX? Like, dude, that's like to me, like how you cut through the noise. I'm like, who is this dude? I'm like, he's been to our event. And I'm like, what?
I know, yeah.
I'm like, what the hell? And then I had to reach out to him like, you're amazing, dude. What are you doing? So what inspired though that first moment and then the continuous, like, I'm just going to keep pouring love into this game?
Yeah, that's a great question. That first, I guess the first compilation one that I did for PodMAX, I was just so jacked up because I had gone through, I think the first one I had put together maybe 6 or 7 episodes, maybe 7 episodes. Or 9 episodes, 10 episodes, whatever it was, doesn't matter. So put together that first compilation video because you guys send out like the what do you call that?
Banner?
The banner. And like I could post that and I know other people do. And that's a great way to kind of get the message out. But I've always just kind of been, the Morning Spotlight started just as a video podcast. It was just a LinkedIn series where it was just 5-minute videos. So I got very comfortable using iMovie and that it really kind of grabs the eye. Then all of a sudden you take of these episodes that I've had. You take these clips from these episodes that are just off the charts, like the best moments from those episodes, put them all in one thing. And it's just kind of my way of showing everybody else, like, this is how awesome PodMAX is. And if you're not a part of it, you should be. So it's more kind of like the love side of it, you know, like what you guys have given to me, even though you may not have known it at the very beginning. Now, all of a sudden, I'm trying to give it back a little bit to hopefully, if it attracts one person, it works, you know, and I don't know if it has or not, but I'm trying. I'm working my hardest.
As is the thing with life you're talking about, which is genuine. You're like, no, I'm putting this out for you guys, for PodMAX. But, you know, especially from my point of view, what it's also doing, I'm sure you are clearly well aware, is it's positioning you in an extraordinary way. It's showing off your skill and talent, because you've extracted these moments that make you look funny, professional, wonderful, relatable.
Right. Yeah, you got to search pretty hard to find those moments, but we try.
But what's great about that, and yes, I understand it's somewhat self-serving, but it serves all, because what happens is someone watches it and they may not know who you are. That's the type of person that's at those events.
Yeah.
You know, like, I want to be on a show with Mike,
right?
Or I want to be the person that said that soundbite and be funny and make him laugh.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many wonderful things that happen. And honestly, I think it's funny, because to me, like, I see the stuff you create. And for any of those who are listening and wondering, what the hell are we talking about? Mike's come through the shows. He's recorded as a podcaster, and then he, off on his own, not any ask, no request from us, created his own videos and trailers and and all these amazing, you know, pieces of content that we love and share, and you know, got him into the studio here, you know. Right.
Yeah.
But
otherwise, I just would have been wandering the streets of Trenton, being like, "Where are those
hey,
guys?
Play that video. Are you the guy that made those videos? Show it to us." That's the Bluefish passcode. So yeah, I mean, what happened though is, like, you do it in a way where I think, like, how are you not a media guy? Like, how are you not a video editor? Because you understand the cadence, and it's not like 90% Mike Ham and 10% the guests. Like, it's equal amongst everything. There's like 33% PodMAX, 33% Morning Spotlight Mike Ham, 33% the guest. Like, you subconsciously were able to create those things.
Yeah.
With everyone getting equal love. It's amazing.
Yeah, I don't know how I do that.
Yeah.
It's just kind of my hidden talent, I guess. But I sell title insurance, so obviously that, you know, it's like literally not even the same ballpark. It's not the same sport, you know, like, it's just a totally different thing.
I'm shocked.
But just like, I don't know, I just started doing it. I like to be creative, and then this just became a creative outlet as an extension of my first creative outlet, which is the podcast. So I took the podcast, used that content to create even more different content, you know, and just try to like again, like I said before, squeeze every drop of juice out of the show as I possibly can to help position myself and the show as just a total brand, and then make people attracted to that, and by extension, the community that I'm a part of.
This is interesting. Can I go in? I want to go deep dive into Mike Ham for a second here.
Okay.
So you said the podcast is a good creative outlet for you.
Yeah.
And then PodMAX, right, gives you sort of the paint and the colors and the brushes and the stuff to sort of create and be creative. You also highlighted that your job is the opposite. It's title insurance.
Yeah. It's like the most boring part of the real estate industry.
What would so now I'm beginning to understand behind the scenes why you have such a passion and desire to create, because on the other side, your 9 to 5 doesn't tap into that amazing side of you. What would happen though if that became your job, like being a creative guy and being a media guy and being like the director that tells other people how to edit videos?
I don't know if it would change it per se, because what I do is I position myself in that title insurance world, because who does this? Yeah. Who does this in the job that I have? I mean, you're in real estate. You know how old school usually the title insurance industry is. Now, all of a sudden, I'm adding my own flavor, my own color into that job. Yeah. And now all of a sudden I'm taking that content creation, I'm making that part of my job, but by extension, I'm also using it as an outlet to be creative and do some different things. Yeah. So now, like, I mean, I know for a fact that since I started the Morning Spotlight, other people in the industry of title insurance have started podcasts. Nobody beats the drum louder than me. I mean, I am little drummer boy. I mean, I'm out there on LinkedIn, Instagram, wherever it is, pushing Mike Ham, coolest guy in title insurance, in the Morning Spotlight, because that has, by extension, I've hit my sales goals faster this year than I have in the previous 3 full years that I've been a part of this industry. that is coming off a year where obviously there wasn't a ton, especially on the commercial side, a ton of deal flow, all that kind of stuff. Now all of a sudden I'm hitting my yearly goal, month 6 of this year. Wow. And that's to me, that's a direct reflection on the amount of content that I've created. Wow. So I'm using that content to increase and enhance the way that I do my job, because it's just a 24-hour-a-day salesperson. Like you could take somebody to lunch and have, lunch with them for an hour. They're going to miss you after they're gone. Now all of a sudden they flip on their phone. There's me. They listen to the show, they come on the show, whatever it is. But if they go on LinkedIn, which a lot of my clients are on LinkedIn, they see my face. There is no way they are escaping me. I am like a social media stalker, but I'm the one that they're looking at. You know what I mean? So That's kind of how I would answer that question.
You've been through the event a handful of times. What memory from the event really sticks out and sits well with you?
I think honestly, which wound up being cool because I had him on the show. I think the first moment that I really got, I was like, this is really cool, was the Jeff Hazlett keynote speech in December.
Okay.
I was just like, this guy's awesome. I need to have him on my show, especially because he offered anybody to have him on the show. So I was like, this is really cool. So I think that was like the first moment that I started to see, kind of what the event could bring to the table. And then there's just been a series of moments over time where, I connect with different people and start connecting with them on social media and talking to them and learning more and all that kind of stuff. So that was probably like the first real moment that I was like, this is something that's really cool. And now that we've gotten all the way to here, there's just been a lot of little moments with just people that are part of the community that have helped me grow and really kind of come to appreciate what the community has to give.
I don't want that point to get lost. And Erik and I have had this conversation often. It's quite extraordinary that our keynotes, as Jeffrey did, and he's not the first or only to do this, which we are so grateful and excited for. Our keynotes come through, have a great experience, and spoken or unspoken, they put themselves out to the community and say, if you want me on your show, I'm here. Yep. And that starts the relationship. So it's not just the relationship with us on this side. They're literally open to a relationship with every single person in that room. And we hear stories all the time that they practically go out onto the PodMAX circuit. And you guys book them and treat them well. And it's a win-win.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like Friday, I'm recording with another keynote speaker that was at the most recent PodMAX event, Steve Sims. So Steve's coming on the Morning Spotlight on Friday. I mean, granted, that episode is going to take a couple weeks to post.
Well,
but
everyone knows me as a podcast whore. That's what he said on our event.
But yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, like they come just as a keynote speaker and they have this incredible message to share and everybody gets all jacked up for it. Yeah. But then it doesn't stop there. And that's what I think is so cool about the whole thing, is that it just doesn't stop at that one day. I mean, you could spend 8 hours on a Zoom call in the summer on a Friday. I mean, who does that? But we did. And then all of a sudden you get to extract all this great stuff post that event, and I think that's what's really cool and what separates those Fridays from every other Friday that you could possibly be doing work or podcasting or whatever.
There's a wonderful thing that's happened in our virtual events that usually happens in a live event. So for example, I remember being in an audience at a live event and seeing the keynote speakers, seeing the MC, seeing the people that are up front. And I would, in any given moment when they're off the stage or going to the bathroom, I would chase them and go, hey, I got a podcast. Would you like to be on my podcast? Mike, pretty much 100%. Let's just say 99% have said yes to be on my show.
Yeah.
And this is years ago up until now. What we've done is we've created this virtual event where you have access. You don't have to chase them while they're going to the bathroom because you're a podcaster. They see you as a podcaster. They understand what you do. And then all you have to do is ask.
Yeah.
And then there's multiple keynotes, right? We have more than one keynote.
Right.
And you're like, I want you all. Come on my podcast. Yeah. And a lot of them are like, yeah, let's just do this. I'm here. That's why I'm here. I want to be on shows. So it's kind of cool to be able to do that. So one thing I wanted to ask you, Mike, is when you've come through, you've met a lot of wonderful people, either on whatever side of the mic, whether they're turned on or off. Is there anything that comes to mind that, a person that you met that you're like, oh man, that's such a valuable
lifetime.
I'm going to be exactly lifelong friends or client or partner or something. Is there anybody that comes other than us?
Right. Exactly. Outside of you guys. So for me, I don't know. I mean, I think that's that's hard to answer because I do think that there's been so many great relationships that I've made. But one of the things that I've said before, I've had him on the show, and then he interviewed me for my show for a future episode with Larry Roberts. I mean, Larry was somebody that I just kind of admired from afar, especially early on, because maybe like I had followed him on social media and all that kind of stuff. And I started listening to his show. And then next thing I know, like now, I think we have a professional relationship that's actually pretty great. And I think that like I respect a lot of what he does. And I joked about it when he came on my show that if you don't listen to Really Random and you listen to the Morning Spotlight, that's good because I basically like lift half the stuff that Larry does on my own show. But that's just been a great way. And then I think like as we kind of got inch closer to that most recent PodMAX event, we had a phone call the night before. We figured out some cool stuff that we were going to do with this most recent episode that we recorded. So just like having somebody like that, that kind of you could look at and figure out like what they're doing, as I mentioned before, and use that to try to like level yourself up and level the show up and all that kind of stuff. So he may not even realize how much that he's helped me, but it's just one of those things where like, that's just somebody that I met through a PodMAX event and, have more recently gotten to know even better, but just like somebody that I think that has helped me a great deal over the last 6-7 months.
I know you know this, but that's really how any successful person learns, right?
Yeah.
Finding somebody who's doing something like you want to be doing and watching it,
right,
and extracting the nuggets and the skill and the technique. 20 plus years ago, my acting teacher told us it's okay to steal as long as you steal from the best.
Right.
And that's applicable right here.
Yeah.
You were watching Larry and you're like, oh, he's doing that. I can do that. And make it your own.
Right. Yeah. It's just like, I mean, for me, the big part of it was just being able to take an interview from start to finish, and like kind of weave that story all together and get from point A to point B, A being the beginning and B being the end. At the beginning, I think I ran decent episodes and decent interviews, but just kind of like listening and kind of seeing, how he took answers and used that to kind of help build towards the ultimate end goal was kind of how I did it. And obviously, he's a Texas guy. I'm a Jersey guy. We have different styles. We have different voices. We have all different kinds of different things. So my approach is going to look a lot different, but at the same time, there's the core of it is very similar. So while that's kind of what I think I pulled the most from him is how he actually has conversations with people rather than being like question, answer, question, answer, question, answer,
And one of the things I always verbalize to anybody listening in the industry is if you want to get better, first of all, this is all a skill and a technique that you can improve on. So if you have any interest, it's all there to learn. You start by watching and listening to as many variety of shows as you possibly can.
Yeah.
There are so many out there doing all kinds of things, the good and the bad and everything in between, and just observe and study. That's what it's about. And you can get better.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's something that you can do. Absolutely. I mean, we did not start off as professional podcasters.
Are we now?
I think people consider us professional podcasters.
Yeah.
It's
cool.
Weird. Yeah. So, but Mike, when I started listening to your show and then eventually, guested on your show, it really just was so obvious. Like this is a natural thing for you. And, some people just have more ability than others, but it doesn't mean that they can't do it. And it doesn't mean that they won't be good at it.
Right.
It just so happens to be something you're naturally great at. But it's obviously a love fest here. And I wanted to just sort of highlight, the fact that we met Mike through an event, happened to be our event. And there's more coming. There's more things that we're all doing separately and then together. So it's really exciting to be part of the community. And that's what we want to highlight on these shows is, everyone has an individual sort of mission and an individual sort of goal to build and grow themselves and their lives and whatever they're doing. But we can't do it alone, right? We've got to do it together. And that's why the goal of this show is like building this PodMAX community through many, many different forms. And this being one of them by highlighting people from the community and showing, how valuable they can be in your life and how valuable they are in our lives. So I just wanted to thank Mike for participating in every level and now showing up.
Including something that has become, I don't even know how conscious this was, but we pull from our community to be as close and involved on our team as possible. And Mike is now coming down that road because a couple of weeks ago, we needed a fill-in, right, for the On Air Brands live show. Amber couldn't make it one Wednesday.
Right.
And we tapped into you and said, why don't you co-host the show?
Yeah. And that was awesome. And honestly, I didn't even think that Todd knew who I was. And all of a sudden I get a text, not that he didn't know who I was, but we had never really had a full conversation prior to him asking me to come on the show.
So there was no real moments. There's no text thread between you guys.
No, like I got a random text from a random number. So sorry, Todd, love you, but
Well,
I didn't know who you were.
He'll be on in
Yeah,
about
he's gonna be
3
over there.
minutes. So.
But yeah, so I didn't know who the number was, and it said, "Hey, it's Todd G." So obviously I knew who it was.
Wow.
And then he's like, we're gonna do the On Air Brands thing tomorrow. Amber can't make it. Are you in? And that was like Tuesday night. And then I said, yeah, of course,
And what's crazy is that I was having a conversation with him at like, hey, Amber can't be there. What's your thought, initial impression of what we should do? He's like, why don't we get someone to co-host? Maybe this. I said, who do you have in mind? And he said, my Cam. And I said, mind blown, of course. So he even came to that table.
Right. Yeah. Which I think was awesome, and it was just something even funnier because I just I'm not trying to like promote this, but I had recently set up one of those buy me a coffee things.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, like you start putting together like a community that you don't even know that you have.
That's right.
Right.
Wow.
And one of these things that I saw was that Todd got me some coffee.
Yes, he
so
did.
Thank you, Todd.
He told us.
And I was like, Todd listens to the show or knows what I'm doing. I mean, like that's actually kind of cool because I knew how ensconced he was in
this. It's like a Patreon. It's like, here's a few dollars every
right.
month.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, it's like they can go on and buy you coffee. So all of a sudden I was like, wow, Growth Suite bought me 4 coffees or whatever it was. I was like, you didn't have to do that. You know what I mean?
He's such a good,
just a good guy. And then later on that night, that's when I got the text, the call to the bullpen from Mike Cam. And there you go. Yeah.
With the phone.
With the phone. The call to the bullpen.
I see Todd. He's going to the back of the dugout.
Yeah.
Oh,
is he ready?
Who's he
he's
calling?
ready.
Who's he calling?
Yeah, he's bringing in Mike Cam.
Just to throw a little love, and then we'll bring in Todd and Amber.
Yeah.
Todd came here. He's part of the team. We were brainstorming. We were doing sort of marketing sort of ideas and stuff, and we kept grabbing these our whiteboard markers, and every one of them were dry.
Yeah.
Maybe 1.5 were not dry. Leave it up to Todd. The next week, here waiting in a package was like a dozen brand new white marker boards. And I was like, Todd's wife is so lucky. I mean, the guy is so thoughtful. Like he pays attention to the details, right? And he understands, like, I'm going to give you. So Todd, we're going to bring you on now. And Amber as well. But where's my Tesla? Can you just have it drive up to my house? Because I want a Tesla too.
We're gonna just need to get that last part clipped for my wife so we can run that. I'll do hyper geo targeted ads, video view from my address, and it just is on replay. Todd's wife is lucky. Todd's wife is lucky.
Put it under the pillow. Let her hear it all day.
I also like the way that the expectations went way above from like, Mike's like, I'm just glad that Todd bought me a coffee. And all of a sudden the guys are like, where's my Tesla?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah. A couple cups of coffee to a Tesla. Yeah.
Like how far pushes really went up, man.
Yeah, exactly.
I really admire the belief in that, though. I mean, Todd, if anybody's going to buy you a Tesla, it's Todd.
I believe it, man. Manifest that for me.
Yeah,
Todd.
right.
So before we get too far into this, that is the official wrap up of what you just experienced was a version of PodMAX Podcast, The Reunion. Each week, we're going to talk to somebody just like this, doing things just like this. So thank you, Mike, for officially coming along.
I appreciate you having me on. This has been great.
And now
he's making the rounds. He was on the On Air Brands podcast last week. Now he's over here.
Do you guys have any other shows that I can get on in the next week or two? That'd be great.
You gotta fly around.
I know you're in town. Yes, Todd.
What Mike does a great job of with his show and why it all started. And if you guys, anybody listening, go check out when he was on Air Brands. Last week it was episode 14 of season 3.
I knew he was going to get it. I knew it.
And so, but what Mike does with his show is that he creates great content, valuable conversations with people so that he doesn't have to spam anybody. And yet, and he's not out spamming, but he's beating the drum as loud as anybody, like he said, but in a way that people actually are interested in it. And like you just described, he came top of mind for me last week when we needed somebody to come in out of the bullpen. And so that's exactly kind of what we're talking about today, where how can you make connections with, true intentions and value without coming off as spammy, right? Like how can you get yourself in front of people regularly? How do you make those connections without being one of these a-holes that are just blasting out automated messages all day, every day that I can't even log into LinkedIn anymore because I just get covered in spam.
Todd, I was shocked that you guys had no relationship. That was a surprise. As you were going to say, Amber?
Oh no, I was breathing, but I always have something to say. So on Todd's comment about the content creation, as somebody who's had the opportunity to guest on Mike's show, we talk so often about how do you get people to share your content, and Mike does such an amazing job of creating content that guests want to share, which again makes it to where he doesn't have to spam. So it's really interesting because when people say, "How do I get people to share my content?" Well, what are you giving them to share? And Mike was one of the first that really stood out at me as creating content that you're really excited to share.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Well, it's all the title insurance training that they have.
It is.
Exactly. Yes. The vast
clearly
title
went to the
insurance
wrong
training has
program.
led me to content creation. Yeah, right. Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely doesn't go unnoticed, brother. And we appreciate it. And we appreciate you, man. So yeah, we're looking forward to jumping into the On Air Brands live show. What's the episode number that people...
Today's episode will be episode number 15.
Wow.
Yeah.
Always excited, always here, and always ready to help and build the community here at the PodMAX podcast, as well as the On Air Brands live show. So tune in. Come on back. You're going to be in for a treat for the month of July.
That's right.
Because now you're going to have the wonderful, beautifully talented
Larry
Rachel Sparrow.
Roberts. Oh, yes.
Oh, yes. that guy, him too. Yeah. But yeah, and then they're going to run the show while Josh and I go sip Mai Tais with laptops, of course, on the beach. And then we'll be back in August to officially kick off the family reunion, PodMAX style. We'll see you then.
I think everybody kind of knows or has a feeling that podcasting is like a thing, it's just a matter of how it gets incorporated into their business, into their story.
Where else can you get on an event, like in person or online, and have like this collection of people? Any person that this group and this community attracts just like brings it.
There is no community like the PodMAX community, guys.
I love PodMAX. I love everything about this environment, this family, and every one of these events. It's just tremendous.
This is our 5th time here, and every time it just gets better and better. I mean, the relationships, the format of the event, and the opportunities to put us in front of people like David, for example.
So we're always open to having deeper and more meaningful conversations one-on-one with each and every one of you to say, all right, how do we help each other? We're all in the same game here. It's life, right? Let's just do it as best as we can and have a blast doing it.
I am just like living off the energy from my 2 interviews this morning, getting pumped for my 3rd interview.
There was just a lot of personality that was brought. There was a lot of deep conversations that I wasn't anticipating. It just created magic.
Are you an entrepreneur? Apply now to be a podcast guest at podmax.co.